New season? Nah, son. New catalyst time. Alright, so this season, along with many other changes, there are some catalyst changes. Now, I'm just going to be completely honest with you. All three of them are going to be in this video because none of them are particularly interesting. Timestamps are on the screen and in the video description if you want to just skip to what you want to see first. Going first with Bad Juju, what they did to Bad Juju is they increased the duration of String of Curses. The baseline String of Curses duration goes from 3.5 to 5.5 at max, but when you have the catalyst, it is a maximum of 7.5 seconds. Also, the magazine size was increased from 27 to 36, and there was an additional flavor text saying that this weapon may also appear more haunted than it used to be. You can tell that there's some FXs. Anyway, talking about the actual catalyst itself, it is simply a increase in duration from 5.5 to 7.5 seconds. An additional 2 seconds is nothing to sneeze at. Percentage-wise, it is less percentage of a buff than it used to be. However, it is much better to have a catalyst that increases the duration to almost 8 seconds than it was to increase it to almost 5 seconds. I used it a little bit for the making of this video, and that String of Curses duration really does matter. You don't forget, String of Curses increases damage and other attributes to the gun. It also gives you super energy based on the amount of stacks you have. So you stack it up to 5x String of Curses and you're getting a dramatically increased super regeneration, dramatically increased damage. Overall, it is a really good gun. That combined with the magazine size changes means you're going to be running out of ammo less often when proccing your first kill on most red bar enemies. This overall is a great change. I personally wouldn't have done it any different myself. The duration of the String of Curses needed to be extended in the first place. It was buffed, and also the catalyst was buffed at the same time. Yeah, this is overall a great change. Now, moving on to the Prospector. Now, the Prospector is interesting because at the same time as the catalyst was changed, the entire gun was overhauled. Basically, the Prospector was redundant in what it did, so it was reworked as follows. Prospector now spawns 3 powerful cluster bombs on detonation, dealing substantially more damage per shot over a much larger area than previously. They have removed sticky grenade, flame grenade, and remote detonation function. The mag size was reduced to 6, and the bonus ammo reserves on the catalyst, wait for it, was changed to plus 50 reload speed. Now, plus 50 really doesn't sound like a lot, but it is noticeable on the Prospector. The Prospector before this catalyst had a base reload speed of 3.55 seconds, and even just briefly glancing at this gameplay, you can tell that it is far from 3.55 seconds. Just off of a quick timer, I was able to deduce that the reload speed for this weapon is approximately 2.8 seconds. However, that's probably a little bit subject, maybe 2.7, maybe 2.9. It just depends on where my stopwatch landed. But as you can see, it is noticeably a quicker reload than before. So this catalyst for the Prospector, because it's a year 1 weapon, you can't actually take it off to compare and contrast before you are stuck with the catalyst. Once you have it, it gives bonus to blast radius, and it gives bonus to reload speed instead of ammo. Now, overall, I do seem currently to enjoy the changes to the Prospector. I think the catalyst is okay, it's fine. The reload speed was cool. The blast radius that it already had is a little bit better, but Prospector is a gun that had, obviously significant reworks, so we'll see how it is. This thing used to be goated for dealing with some things like the Consecrated Mind. I feel like it's still going to be even better for bosses like that, but Prospector rework is going to be a completely different video, just trying to melt different various raid bosses with it. We'll see that soon. Besides that, we're done talking about the Prospector. Just removal of the ammo economy and adding plus 50 to reload on top of the already increased blast radius. So now we get to talk about what I think everybody is interested in. Like me, it is the Huckleberry changes. Now, there are a couple important things to consider when talking about Huckleberry. Huckleberry really isn't a gun built for the Crucible. It is built for those high-density, basically fun activities where you just want to shoot things and turn off your brain. Considering the uptime for Rampage, considering how long you just have to hold down the trigger and just walk at people, considering that it has a very, very small magazine. We're going to see that in a second. Magazine's always been a holding back factor for Huckleberry as long as it's been in the game. So Huckleberry had 2 significant changes. Before the change, the Catalyst allowed the gun to reload fully on kills. Now, Huckleberry, if you don't have the Catalyst installed, only refills half of its magazine when you got kills, and the Catalyst made you reload the full magazine whenever you got kills. That was the only thing it did. Quite frankly, it was garbage. This was a long time coming. I'm surprised they haven't done it sooner. They integrated the full reload feature of Huckleberry just into the gun. That is exotic, that is intrinsic. But the Catalyst, what they added in place of that is something to improve the damage of a noticeably gun that's lacking in damage. So they added Kinetic Tremors. Now, Kinetic Tremors is good for a couple of reasons. For starters, Kinetic Tremors synergizes perfectly with damage perks, i.e. Rampage. Kinetic Tremors damage is increased based on the base damage of the weapon plus modifier, so obviously you're going to be hitting harder Kinetic Tremors more frequently if you have Rampage active. I can go in depth to how Kinetic Tremors is working, but at max, you're basically going to be expecting the percent increase in damage to match Rampage perfectly. It's 1-to-1. Now, there were a couple things I couldn't really tell in the first tidbit of gameplay, in the first little demonstration, if the gun was reloading or if the gun was triggering its exotic effect off of the final bullet of the kill from the Huckleberry, or if it was triggering its exotic perk based on the kill from Kinetic Tremors. I didn't expect this to be the case. I expected this to be an afterthought that was patched and later, but Bungie actually managed to get it right this time. The Kinetic Tremors explosion does two things. It does damage. It also procs Rampage, which at the same time reloads your weapon if you get a kill. This is vitally important. A big downside of using Huckleberry before in PvE activity was the fact that you couldn't really use its fast fire rate and its additional damage and basically, good stats besides its magazine capacity to shoot a boss. You had to shoot a red bar and then kind of trail your gun over to the boss, and by that time you've already wasted a third of your magazine. So this was really just the add clear special for new players or really anybody that just wanted to be funny and use an SMG. There's never really been a good time to use Huckleberry in PvE. There has been one good time to use Huckleberry in PvP, but this change really doesn't affect that. So because Kinetic Tremors triggers a Rampage and it triggers the reload for Huckleberry, what this does is groups of enemies that you have a really big target and a bunch of little targets around you. You can still kill the little targets before killing the big targets, but it is marginally more efficient to just shoot the big guy and just get the Kinetic Tremors to proc and kill all the little guys, in which case you'll be able to just keep on holding that trigger on the big guy, which will make more Kinetic Tremors, which will kill the small guys, which will give you more ammo. It really just depends on how tightly knit, how close packed the enemies are, but hey, that's just the way it works. I am a big fan of this change. It works well. Kinetic Tremors, even though it wasn't the perk that I would have chosen for the Huckleberry, I'm glad that it at least synergizes in the way you expected. Now, this doesn't make Huckleberry top tier or anywhere even remotely close to usable in high-end activity, as you can tell. I mean, this is really just good for having red bars with not a lot of health. Kinetic Tremors, it does help with the damage issues if you were to take this into a higher tier activity, but at the end of the day, it's still Huckleberry. It has an identity crisis. I feel like if you dove a little bit deeper in the fantasy where you have your, I guess, real world equivalent weapon of a PP Bison with a helix, with a helix style, circular magazine, I feel like Huckleberry would massively benefit from doubling the magazine size and potentially increasing the amount of bullets you need to fully trigger ride the bull. But, that could be a little bit unbalanced in other parts of the games. I just feel that if the magazine size on Huckleberry was increased so that you can now take more advantage of Kinetic Tremors and take advantage of its increased fire rate from Ride the Bull and being able to kill all the little things, I feel like the power fantasy of Huckleberry would be even better. I don't think it would get too much crazier in Crucible because at the end of the day, it is still Huckleberry. But I think every other part of the game would be better. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So to recap, we got a brand new catalyst for Huckleberry and the integration of the old catalyst into the base gun. We got a complete rework of Prospector and some stat adjustments on what the catalyst provides, that being only reload speed, and we have the bad Juju just getting a straight buff on an already existing perk. Catalyst changes. I'm not going to lie. I don't think this was a knock it out of the park moment. I feel like they could have done something a little bit different, if not Kinetic Tremors, but to at least buff certain stats of the gun for Huckleberry. You know, year 1 Catalyst Syndrome, they usually just increase the stats. I feel like this could have done with an increased stat in the form of like a +10 or a +15 to the magazine. But apart from that, I like these Catalyst changes. There's one new catalyst, Salvation's Grip. It's going to be getting its own dedicated video because it does a lot to help the gun out in the current stasis meta. So besides that, I want to thank each and every single one of you for watching. Let me know in the comment section down below what your favorite part of these changes are, and yeah, subscribe. I'm pretty close to 5,000 subscribers. I want to get there by the end of the year, and the rest of the gameplay in this video is just going to be a demonstration on Kinetic Tremors in one of my favorite lost sectors. So besides that, I want to thank you all for watching, and take care now.